You know that feeling when you walk into a room and you can sense it, that invisible wall between you and everyone else? It's not that people are hostile. It's worse than that. They're indifferent. You sit down at the table, you smile, you try to contribute to the conversation, but something is off. Your words don't land the way other people's words land. When you speak, there's a brief pause, a polite nod, and then the conversation flows right back to where it was before you interrupted. It's like you're speaking a language that sounds like English, but somehow doesn't translate. And the worst part? You can feel yourself trying harder. You lean in more, you laugh a little louder at their jokes, you agree a little quicker with their opinions, you offer your help before anyone asks for it. You become the person who's always available, always accommodating, always there when needed, and you tell yourself this is how you build connections. This is how you become liked. This is how you earn your place in the circle. But deep down, in that part of you that you don't like to acknowledge, you know the truth. The more available you become, the less they value you. The more you offer, the less they appreciate. The more you try to be included, the more you feel excluded. And here's the brutal part. You can see it working for other people. You watch someone walk into that same room, someone who doesn't try half as hard as you do, someone who doesn't smile as much, doesn't agree as quickly, doesn't offer help unprompted. And somehow everyone gravitates toward them. They speak and people actually listen. They decline invitations and people want them more. They set boundaries and people respect them. Meanwhile, you've been bending over backwards, making yourself endlessly available, being the nicest person in the room, and you're still alone, still overlooked, still the backup option. And you lie awake at night wondering what's wrong with you, why you're not enough, why your kindness doesn't translate into connection. But here's what nobody tells you. The problem isn't that you're not kind enough or friendly enough or helpful enough. The problem is that you violated one of the most fundamental laws of power and human nature, and until you understand this law, you're going to keep pushing people away while desperately trying to pull them close. There's a reason this happens, and it goes deeper than just social skills or charisma. There's an ancient principle that governs human behavior, one that most people never consciously recognize, but everyone unconsciously responds to. Robert Greene calls it Law 4 in his masterpiece, The 48 Laws of Power. Always say less than necessary. But the principle extends far beyond just words. It's about scarcity, about value, about the fundamental way humans determine what's worth their attention and respect. When something is rare, we value it. When something is abundant, we take it for granted. This isn't this. Just psychology, it's economics, it's evolution, it's wired into our DNA. And you, in your desperate attempt to be liked and included, have made yourself abundant. You've made yourself the thing that's always there, always accessible, always willing. And humans don't treasure what's always available. They treasure what they have to work for, what they have to earn, what they might lose. Think about how people treat water when it's flowing freely from their tap versus how they treat it in a desert. Same substance, completely different value. The only difference is scarcity. You are the freely flowing tap in a world that only values the desert well. Every time you immediately respond to that text message, every time you rearrange your schedule to accommodate someone else, every time you offer your time and energy without being asked, every time you seek approval through excessive availability, you're telegraphing a message you don't intend to send. You're saying, I'm not valuable enough to be selective. I'm not important enough to have boundaries. I don't have anything better to do than to wait for your attention. And people hear that message loud and clear, not consciously, but viscerally. Before we go further, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself. How many times have you canceled your own plans, your own needs, your own priorities, to be available for someone who wouldn't do the same for you? How many times have you sat by your phone waiting for a response from someone who takes hours or days to reply to you, while you respond to them within minutes? How many times have you felt that sinking feeling in your stomach when you realize you care way more about the relationship than they do, that you're investing everything, while they're barely investing anything? If this resonates with you,
If you've felt this imbalance, this one-sided dynamic, I want you to leave a comment right here, right now, just write, "I've given too much to people who gave too little." That's it. You don't need to explain the situation. You
Don't need to name names or tell the whole story. Just those words, "I've given too much to people who gave too little." Because when you put that into writing, when you acknowledge it publicly, even anonymously in a comment section, something shifts inside you. You stop being alone with that pain. You look down at the comments and you see hundreds, maybe thousands of other people writing the exact same thing. And suddenly you realize this isn't your personal failure. This isn't evidence that you're broken or unlovable. This is a pattern, a trap that kind-hearted people fall into because nobody ever taught them how human value actually works. So go ahead, write it down. I've given too much to people who gave too little, and let that be the first step toward changing this dynamic forever. The solution isn't to become cold or cruel, or to stop caring about people. That's what weak interpretations of power dynamics will tell you, but they're missing the point entirely. The solution is to understand that scarcity creates value, and value creates respect, and respect creates genuine connection. You've been doing it backwards. You've been trying to create connection through availability, but that's not how it works. Connection is the result of mutual respect, and respect only comes when there's something to respect, when there's a boundary that can't be crossed without permission, when there's a standard that has to be met, when there's a presence that can't be taken for granted. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine two people at work. Person A is always the first to volunteer for extra projects, always stays late when asked, always responds to emails within minutes, always says yes to covering shifts, always brings in donuts, always asks if anyone needs help. Person A is nice, helpful, reliable. Now imagine Person B, who is competent and professional but selective about commitments. When Person B says yes to something, you know they mean it, and they'll deliver exceptionally. When Person B stays late, it's because the project genuinely needs it, not because they're trying to be liked. When Person B offers help, it's valuable because it's not constant, it's strategic. Who gets promoted? Who gets respected? Who do people actually want to work with on important projects? It's Person B, every single time. Not because Person B is more skilled, often they're not, but because Person B has created scarcity around their time, their energy, their commitment. And that scarcity signals value. Person A has made themselves so abundant, so accessible, that their contributions become invisible, expected, taken for granted. This same principle applies to friendships, to romantic relationships, to every social dynamic you navigate. The person who is always available becomes the person who is never a priority. Here's where it gets psychologically sophisticated, and this is where most people miss the subtlety. Scarcity doesn't mean being unavailable for the sake of being unavailable. That's just manipulation, and people can smell it. Real scarcity comes from genuinely having a life that you value, priorities that you honor, boundaries that you maintain, standards that you uphold. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about actually being someone who has better things to do than to orbit around other people's validation. When you're truly scarce, you're not performing scarcity, you're living it. You don't check your phone every 5 minutes because you're genuinely engaged in something meaningful. You don't immediately say yes to every invitation because you've already committed to something you value. You don't over-explain or over-apologize because you're secure in your decisions. This authenticity is what people respond to. They can sense the difference between someone who's pretending to be busy and someone who actually has a life worth living. And ironically, the moment you stop trying to prove your worth through constant availability, the moment you start living as if you're already valuable, people start treating you as if you are. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it only works if it's rooted in genuine self-respect, not theatrical scarcity tactics. Let's go even deeper into the mechanics of why this works. There's a concept in psychology called the principle of least interest. developed by sociologist Willard Waller. It states that in any relationship, the person who is less invested has more power. Not because power is the goal, but because lack of desperation signals value. When you're not desperate for someone's approval, you're not scanning their every word for hidden meaning, you're not overthinking every interaction, you're not adjusting your behavior to keep them happy. You're just existing as yourself, and that self-possession is magnetic. People are drawn to those who seem complete without them, because it suggests that if this person chooses to spend time with you, it's because you're genuinely worth their time, not because they're lonely or desperate or trying to fill a void. Think about it from the other person's perspective. If someone is always available to you, always accommodating, always seeking your approval, what does that tell you about them? Consciously or not, you start to think this person doesn't have much going on, or this person needs me more than I need them, or this person's standards must be pretty low if they're this eager to be around me. It's harsh, but it's true. Humans are status-seeking creatures, and we unconsciously assess the value of others based on how they value themselves. If you treat yourself as low priority, always putting others first, always available, always accommodating, others will adopt your own assessment of your worth. But if you treat yourself as high priority, if you honor your own time, if you're selective about your commitments, others will mirror that assessment back to you. They'll think if this person values their time this much, their time must actually be valuable. I should respect it. Now let's talk about what this looks like in practice, because theory without application is useless. Start with your availability. If someone texts you, you don't need to respond instantly. This isn't about playing games. This is about living your life. If you're in the middle of something, focused on work, enjoying a meal, reading a book, finish what you're doing. Respond when you're ready, not when their notification demands it. This simple act recalibrates the dynamic. They learn that you have a life, that you're not sitting around waiting for their attention. Next, your commitments. Stop saying yes to everything. Before you agree to anything, ask yourself, do I genuinely want to do this? Or am I doing this because I'm afraid of disappointing them? If it's the latter, practice saying, let me check my schedule and get back to you. Or, I appreciate the invitation, but I have to pass this time. You don't need to over-explain. You don't need to justify. You don't need to apologize excessively. A simple, polite decline is sufficient. People respect boundaries far more than they respect doormats. Third, your energy. Stop offering help before it's requested. This one is hard for natural givers, but it's crucial. When you constantly anticipate other people's needs and rush to fulfill them, you rob them of the opportunity to recognize their own need and value your assistance. Let people ask for help, and when they do, you can choose to offer it or not, based on your genuine capacity and desire, not based on fear of seeming unhelpful. When help is given freely but not desperately, it's actually appreciated. When it's given desperately, it's expected. Here's an advanced concept that will change everything once you internalize it. The people who are least alone are not the people who try hardest to avoid loneliness. They're the people who are so comfortable in their own company, so engaged in their own pursuits, so secure in their own value, that other people want to be part of their world. Loneliness doesn't come from being alone. It comes from feeling invisible when you're with others. And you feel invisible because you've made yourself a background character in everyone else's story instead of the main character in your own. The law of power that explains why you're alone is this: you've given away your scarcity, and in doing so, you've given away your value. But here's the beautiful part. You can take it back. You take it back by building a life so rich, so full, so aligned with your own values and interests and goals that other people's validation comes nice to have instead of necessary to survive. You take it back by developing skills, hobbies, knowledge, passions that make you genuinely interesting instead of generically agreeable. You take it back by setting boundaries that might make some people uncomfortable, but will make the right people respect you. You take it back by being willing to walk away from relationships that drain you, that diminish you, that require you to shrink yourself to fit in. This is where the internal work becomes non-negotiable. You can implement all the tactical advice in the world, but if you haven't dealt with the underlying wound that makes you seek validation through availability, you'll just find more sophisticated ways to abandon yourself for others. Ask yourself, where did you learn that your value comes from how useful you are to others? Was it a parent who only showed affection when you achieved something? Was it a friendship group where you had to earn your place by being the helpful one? Was it a romantic relationship where love was conditional on your compliance? Identify the origin point, because that's where the pattern starts. Then ask yourself, what would it feel like to be valuable simply because you exist, not because of what you do for others? What would it feel like to have people in your life who appreciate you, not for your utility, but for your presence? What would it feel like to say no without guilt, to prioritize yourself without shame, to exist without constantly proving your worth? These aren't rhetorical questions. Sit with them. Journal about them. Let yourself imagine a life where you're not performing for approval, you're just living. That vision, that feeling, is what you're moving toward. Here's your 7-day challenge, and this one is going to be uncomfortable, which is how you know it's working. For the next 7 days, practice strategic scarcity in one specific area of your life. Choose one relationship or context where you've been overly available, overly accommodating, overly eager to please. For the next week, pull back. Don't initiate contact. Don't be the first to text, to call, to make plans. If they reach out, don't respond immediately. Take your time, finish what you're doing, respond when you're ready. If they ask for something, don't automatically say yes. Pause. Consider whether you genuinely want to do it, and give an honest answer. Notice what happens. Some people will barely notice, which tells you how little they were actually invested in the first place. Some people will reach out more, suddenly interested now that you're not chasing them. And some people, the right people, will respect your boundaries and engage with you as an equal. Pay attention to your own internal experience, too. Notice the anxiety that comes up when you're not performing, not pleasing, not accommodating. Notice the fear that they'll abandon you if you're not constantly available. Sit with that discomfort without acting on it. That discomfort is the old pattern dying, and it needs to die so something healthier can grow in its place. By day 7, you'll have valuable data about who actually values you versus who just values your utility. And you'll have started to rewire the neural pathways that equate love with self-abandonment. If you made it this far, it means something in this message resonated with you. Something you've been feeling but couldn't quite articulate. And I want you to know, you're not broken for having felt invisible, for having tried too hard, for having given too much to people who didn't give back. You were doing the best you could with the understanding you had, but now you have new understanding, and with that comes new choices. You can choose to stop making yourself abundant. You can choose to honor your own time, your own energy, your own worth. You can choose to be scarce, not as a manipulation tactic, but as a natural consequence of actually having a life you value. And when you do, when you genuinely become someone who has better things to do than to wait around for crumbs of validation, you'll notice something miraculous. The right people will start showing up, not the people who want a servant or a fan or someone to boost their ego. The people who want an equal, someone with their own thoughts, their own boundaries, their own life. Those people will see your self-respect and recognize it as a green light, not a barrier. They'll think, here's someone, who knows their worth. Here's someone I can actually respect. Here's someone worth getting to know. This channel exists for people like you, people who've been told that kindness means self-sacrifice, that love means availability, that connection means accommodation. Every week I bring you strategies rooted in power dynamics, human nature, and psychological truth, not the sanitized, feel-good version, the real version, the version that actually works in the world as it is, not as we wish it were. If you're tired of being overlooked, If you're ready to stop being the backup option, if you want to learn how to command respect without begging for it, hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. And if this message helped you see something clearly for the first time, leave a like so more people who need to hear this can find it. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, you were never meant to be abundant. You were meant to be rare.